Greetings, fellow lords and ladies. We're looking at Game of Thrones Season 7 now continues on with the episode Stormborn. During a thunderstorm at Dragonstone, Tyrion Lannister, Varys, and Queen Daenerys Targaryen talk about the stormy circumstances of her birth. Varys informs Daenerys that Queen Cersei Lannister's position in Westeros is tenuous. Tyrion counsels her not to burn the Seven Kingdoms and proposes that she forge alliances with the other houses not currently aligned with Cersei. Dan questions Varys about his previous services to her father, the Mad King, and King Robert Baratheon. Varys confessed that King Robert Baratheon had little interest in ruling, but initially appeared to be a definite improvement over Aerys II. Dany then concerns Varys about his role in hiring the assassins to target her. Varys reminds her that his choices were limited to either feigning continuing loyalty to Robert by arranging the assassination or refusing losing his head for it. She trusts Varys due to its track record of switching allegiances. Refusing to be intimidated, Varys points out that competent rulers do not deserve blind loyalty. He recounts his lowly origins as a castrated slave and tells her his true loyalty lies with the oppressed masses. Varys tells Daenerys that if all she wants from him is blind loyalty, she may as well have him killed, but he is much more useful to her and to the realm alive, and that he believes she is last hope for the people. Dany accepts his fealty on the condition that he not conspire against her. Instead, she has her swear that if he thinks she is failing the people, he'll tell her when she's wrong and be as honest with her as he has been today. Varys agrees. Seemingly satisfied, Daenerys also warns Varys that if he betrays her, she will burn him alive. Varys replies that he would expect nothing less from the mother of dragons. Daenerys is then visited by the Red Priest Melisandre, who believes Dany might be the prince that was promised. Varys questions Melisandre about her previous service to elevate King Stannis Baratheon. While Daenerys initially does not believe that she could be the prince, Melisandre reveals that the High Valyrian word prince or princess is gender neutral. But Daenerys asks Melisandre if she believes the prophecy applies to her. Melisandre replies she believes it could refer to Daenerys or one other, Jon Snow, the king of the north, who has united the north and the wildlings against a common enemy. Tyrion vouches for Jon Snow, convinces Daenerys that he will make a good ally, given the crimes committed by the Lannisters against his family. Dany accepts Tyrion's advice, tells him to extend an invitation for Jon to attend her at Dragonstone, where Jon must bend the knee. In the chamber of the painted table, Yark and Illyria stand firmly advocating immediate assault on King's Landing. Tyrion devises laying waste to the kingdom's capital and causing the deaths of tens of thousands of innocents. When Illyria believes Tyrion was lack of stomach for war, despite his previous command and service at the Battle of the Blackwater, Tyrion returns by deriding Illyria and that her sole accomplishment to the war effort has been to poison an innocent girl, his niece Marcella Baratheon, for the sake of petty vengeance against the Lannisters. Illyria does not deny and expresses her regret that her lover Oberyn Martell died for the cause of Tyrion's freedom. Daenerys ends the argument with a rebuke for Illyria to respect her hand. Back to the matter of the invasion. Daenerys insists she doesn't wish to be known as the Queen of the Ashes, to which Olenna Tyrell sarcastically ponders if Daenerys will take the Iron Throne by asking politely. Olenna reminds Daenerys of her granddaughter Margaery Tyrell's fate, a beloved queen who was killed when Cersei blew up the great sept of Baelor. Tyrion proposes to use the combination of Tyrell and Dornish forces to lay siege to King's Landing, much to the chagrin of Olenna and Illyria, who balk at the thought of using their own soldiers. Tyrion, however, insists that using the unsullied Dothraki would arouse the patriotism of Westerosi bannermen, who would see them as foreign invaders and potentially close ranks behind Cersei. He proposes in Grey Worm and the Unsullied to take Casterly Rock instead, cutting off Cersei's retreat and dealing a massive blow to the morale of the Western Army. In the meantime, the Greyjoy fleet will escort Illyria back to Sunspear to rally the Dornish forces and then ferry them up the coast to King's Landing, bypassing the Stormlands and allowing the siege to commence early. Daenerys accepts Tyrion's proposal and reminds the others on her council that she will not be attacking King's Landing, and requests consenting approval from everyone, which they give. Daenerys dismisses everyone except Lady Olenna. The Dragon Queen tells the Queen of Thorns she is aware that her motives are based on revenge for Cersei and not of love for Daenerys. Daenerys insists that she will usher in an era of peace. Olenna, however, reflects that there was never lasting peace under the Mad King, or any preceding Targaryen for that matter. She tells Daenerys that Tyrion is a clever man, but she herself has outlasted many clever men by not listening to their advice. Olenna says the Lords of Westeros are sheep, but Daenerys is not a sheep. She counsels Daenerys that she is to rule Westeros. You're a dragon. Be a dragon. Later, Missandei visits Grey Worm to bid him farewell for his departure to Casterly Rock. Grey Worm confides that Missandei is his weakness, and when she expresses confusion, he tells her that the good masters of Astapor torture the Unsullied by exposing them to their worst fears. For example, the fear of dogs led to being made to sleep with dogs. A fear of heights means climbing a cliff. If the young boy was afraid of drowning, he'd be thrown into the sea. If he drowns, it will be good. And if he learns to swim, it will be good because only the fit survive. Grey Worm recalls that he was never the biggest, fastest, strongest, but he was the most fearless warrior until he met Missandei. She replies that she also has to deal with fear and kisses him. Missandei strips naked and proceeds to undress Grey Worm. Grey Worm is willing to remove his trousers, presumably not wanting to horrify her with his castration scars. Eventually acquiesces to Missandei's wishes. The two of them then share an intimate sexual encounter. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, in the throne of the Red Keep, Queen Cersei Lannister gives a speech urging several nobles from the Reach, including Rendell Tarly, to reaffirm their allegiance to the Iron Throne and not follow House Tyrell in supporting Daenerys. Cersei warns that the Targaryens, Dothraki and Unsullied hordes would pillage their lands and homes and rape their women. Lord Tarly points out that Daenerys has 3 dragons. Mr. Qyburn replies that he is at work on a solution. Following the audience with Queen Cersei, Lord Tarly meets in private with Jaime Lannister, who wants to appoint him as his general. Tarly is unwilling to break his fealty to Lady Olenna Tyrell and is wary of the Lannisters, who cut the rival swords at weddings. Jaime reminds Tarly they also swore an oath to the Iron Throne and tells him that Cersei is preferable to Daenerys and her foreign armies. Jaime also promises that Cersei will make Tarly the new Warden of the South. Later, Qyburn leads Cersei to the dragon schools beneath the Red Keep. He tells Cersei that his spies have reported that one of Daenerys' dragons was wounded by a spear at Marine, showing that the dragons are not invincible. Qyburn then displays a scorpion, a long-range artillery weapon, where he assures her that they can hurt dragons. He has her test the scorpion, thereby skull Balerion the Black Dread, the dragon of Aegon the Conqueror. She is pleased when the bolt pierces through the massive hard skull. At Winterfell, Jon Snow, Sansa Stark, and Davos Seaworth discuss the letter they received from Tyrion. Jon serves Sansa's opinion, and while Sansa remembers that Tyrion was kind to her and was unlike the rest of his family, she wonders if the message is truly from Tyrion. Jon confirms the letter's authenticity as it ends with the line, "For all dwarves are bastards in their father's eyes," which was what Tyrion told Jon when they first met. Even so, Sansa worries it's too big a risk, and Jon concedes that now is not the right time to go to Dragonstone. Davos opines that Dany will make a good ally in the war to come against the White Walkers. Jon himself told him that whites are killed by fire, and what creatures just happen to breathe fire. Some days later, Maester Wilka brings Jon a message from Sam in the Citadel. Jon gathers the Northern Lords in the main hall and announces that Sam's letter reveals that there is a vein of dragonglass beneath Dragonstone. Hence, Lord Tyrion has invited him to Dragonstone to meet with Queen Daenerys, and announces his decision to travel to Dragonstone to convince Daenerys to join their fight against the White Walkers. Together, he plans to travel with Davos to White Harbor and sail to Dragonstone Island. Lords Jon Royce and Robert Glover voice their opinions that a Targaryen cannot be trusted, citing the atrocities committed by Daenerys' father. Lady Olenna Mormont urges the King of the North to stay at home. Jon accepts he is taking a risk, but stresses that the fight against the White Walkers is more important, and they need Daenerys' aid if the North is to be saved. Jon emphasizes that the North is his home, it is part of him, and he will never stop fighting for it. Sansa reiterates her objection to Jon's leaving, and Jon tells Sansa that he is appointing her as ruler of the North in his absence, as he is a sister, a regent, and a Stark. Sansa accepts. In the catacombs beneath Winterfell, Peter Baelish finds Jon Snow, who is visiting his father's tomb, and vouches that Tyrion can be trusted. Peter tells John that while he and Eddard had their differences, they both loved Catelyn Stark. He notes Catelyn wasn't fond of John, and muses that perhaps Catelyn underestimated John's potential as John now stands as North's best chance against the coming storm. When John, who truly distrusts Baelish, says that Peter shouldn't be there and that they have nothing to say to each other, Baelish replies that John should be grateful to him for having saved him from death at the hands of Ramsay Bolton. Baelish insists that he is not John's enemy. He tells John that he loves Sansa as he loves Sansa's mother. A disgusted John, angered by this, lashes out and seizes Baelish by the throat, slamming him to a wall. He tells Baelish, "Touch my sister and I'll kill you myself." Outside, John Deaf and several horsemen then prepare to ride south to White Harbor while Sansa watches from the castle battlements. Before John leaves, he and Sansa bid each other farewell. Peter, emerging from the catacombs, gazes at Sansa. In the Riverlands, Arya Stark encounters Hot Pie at the end of the crossroads, causing him to give her some pie and ale. Hot Pie tells her that he's become a seasoned pie master, and Arya mentions that she has had some experience baking 2 pies, admitting the fact that he served Lothar Frey and Walder Rivers to their father, late Lord Walder Frey. When Hot Pie asks Arya if the Lady Knight Brienne of Tarth had found her, Arya gives an affirmative answer. When Hot Pie asks where she is traveling to, Arya replies that she is traveling to King's Landing for the Queen. Hot Pie tells her Queen Cersei has blended the grapes set to Baelor and wonders why she is not heading to Winterfell. Arya replies that the Boltons occupy the castle, but Hot Pie informs her that the Boltons are now dead, killed during the Battle of the Bastards by her half-brother Jon Snow, who has been named King of the North. Arya says head north, and Hot Pie tells her not to worry about paying for the cost of the meal, since she is a friend. As she leaves, Hot Pie remarks that Arya is pretty for someone whom he thought was a boy. Arya rides her horse into the frost-covered forest. Later, as Arya prepares to set up camp in a snowy forested area, her horse is started by several wolves. Before the wolves can attack her, they are silenced by their pack leader, which turns out to be Arya's direwolf, Nymeria. Nymeria is initially apprehensive towards Arya, but soon recognizes her former mistress. Arya tells her direwolf that she is going home and invites her to come with her. However, Nymeria turns and leaves with the pack. Arya watches the sense and remarks, "That's not you." Anyway, in Old Town, at the Citadel, Archmaester Ebrose and Sam examine Jorah Mormont, whose grayscale spread to his torso. The Archmaester tells Jorah that he should have cut off his lower arm instead of letting the infection spread. Ebrose says that Mormont is beyond saving. While it's customary for infected small folk to be sent to live with the Stone Men, Ebrose gives Mormont 1 more day, implying with a look at his sword that the anointed knights should choose to commit suicide instead. When Sam asks about sending condolences to Jorah's family at House Mormont, Jorah replies that he is estranged from his family. Later, the Archmaester lectures Charlie about the art of writing history. Sam refuses to give up on Jorah and mentions that the previous Maester Pylos successfully treated 2 cases of advanced grayscale. Abros responds that Pylos contracted the disease himself and died of it. Because of the risk, the procedure was declared forbidden. Undaunted, Sam decides to read Jorah and secretly visits his quarters after dark. He tells Jorah, "You're not dying today." He reveals himself to be a Stormborn Night's Watch, that he served under Jorah's father, late Lord Commander Jorah Mormont, and was present when he died. Sam gives Jorah rum to drink after taking a fortified swig himself, saying that the process will be painful. Sam also provides Jorah with a thick strip of leather as a mouthguard, so he could focus him on biting down to help muffle his screams. As he explains that he's performing the procedure without permission, Sam's plan involves using a scalpel to separate and cut away Jorah's infected skin, and then applying a medicinal herbal ointment plastered to the exposed layer. The Jorah gives him a look that tells Sam he shouldn't bother trying to explain it to him. Despite experiencing the pain of having a large patch of grayscale skin debrided, Jorah nods his consent for Sam to continue the debridement. And finally, in Blackwater Bay, Yara Greyjoy and her brother Theon Greyjoy travel aboard their portion of the Iron Fleet with their Dornish allies Illyri Sand, her daughter Tyene, and Tyrion's half-sisters Obar and Nymeria stand. In their quarters, the Sand-Snakes are laying in bed and argue about killing Lannisters. Elsewhere, Illyria drinks Ironborn liquor with Yara and Theon, which she compares unfavorably to Doran and Schwein. Illyria asks Yara if she has ever been to Doran, to Yara responds that she has been there a few times. Illyria responds that there is a boy in every port in Doran, and Yara tells her, a boy, a girl, depends on the port. As they begin to flirt with another, and Illyria motions for Theon to get her more wine. Yara explains that Theon is not a servant, but will be both her advisor and protector when she's killed her uncle. Yara puts her feet up on the table. Illyria bends over and Yara spreads her legs. Illyria bends over her and Yara and spreads her legs apart across the table. Illyria moves her hand up Yara's leg towards her crotch. Illyria invites Theon to have a threesome with her and Yara, but Yara tells Illyria, leave him be. While Yara and Illyria begin kissing, Yara's ship is struck and lurches to the side. Moving topside, they discover that their fleet has been ambushed by Euron Greyjoy's portion of the Iron Fleet. Euron's flagship Silence rams Yara's ship and lands a boarding party. Euron at the forefront of the attack. Yara and her men fight fiercely, but are overwhelmed by Euron's warriors. Jane retreats below decks to protect her mother, Illyria, and Yara's orders, while Obar and Nymeria fight against Euron's Ironborn. Obar fights Euron, who kills her by impaling her with her own spear. Nymeria attacks him with her whip, but Euron strangles her to death with it. Though Jane kills her Ironborn, she and Illyria are overwhelmed. Illyria tells the Ironborn to kill them quickly. They are taken captive instead. Yara and Euron fight with axes as Yara's fleet burns in the night. Euron captures Yara and then goes to Little Theon to come save her. Theon is about to come to Sister's aid but panics when Euron's men begin mutilating the wounded sailors, reminding him of the tortures he suffered at Ramsay Bolton's hands. To Yara's dismay, Theon jumps overboard while Euron laughs with cruel glee. Theon clings to driftwood and sees Obar and Nymeria's corpses impaled and hanged by the neck from the prow, respectively. Euron's fleet starts sailing towards King's Landing as Yara's fleet burns in the narrow sea, while Theon watches helplessly as the ship carrying his sister disappears into the night. Ah, poor Theon. Ooh. So anyway, let's take a look at some behind-the-scenes notes about this episode. The title refers to Daenerys Targaryen as she and how she perceived her personal sobriquet, Daenerys Stormborn, which she has used throughout the series. Right before the rebels arrived at King's Landing at the end of Robert's Rebellion, her pregnant mother was sent to safety on Dragonstone. Her mother went into labor soon afterward, during a massive storm that smashed to pieces what little was left of the Targaryen fleet anchored at Dragonstone before dying in childbirth. Being born this ill-omened storm, she had the nickname Daenerys Stormborn. The episode itself opens with Tyrion and Daenerys referring to this. The original title of the episode is actually The Mad King's Daughter, as Brian Cockman revealed in a post-premiere interview. The show draft of the episode had someone referred to as The Mad King's Daughter in every other storyline, and these were actually filmed. The lines were trimmed for time from the final version, i.e. Cersei calls her that in the final cut, but someone would have called her that too in the Winterfell storyline. The idea was stressed that no one in Westeros really knows Daenerys because she's been in exile her whole life, and her father was an infamous, literally insane tyrant, so many people would realistically be somewhat wary of her. It is a second episode following Breaker of Chains, whose title refers to one of Daenerys' sobriquets. The soundtrack playing over the credits is a rendition of the House Greyjoy theme. On the official soundtrack release, it is titled Ironborn. Cockman went on to say in his post-premiere interview that with so many once separated characters now meeting again, there was a danger in the writing process of going to recap mode. Two separated characters summarizing their experiences even though we, the audience, already saw this, so it would waste time on narrative focus. In the original draft, for example, bears the scene with Daenerys is actually much longer, as he gives an actual summary of the current political situation across all Westeros for her to plan out her next move. This was actually filmed, but edited for time/focus. Similarly, his original draft included a scene, which was removed from his second draft and never even filmed, of Theon and Tyrion on Dragonstone having a conversation about Sansa. Tyrion was in a sham marriage to her and worries about her safety. Athena explains how they escaped Winterfell. This was never even filmed to cover the script fairly early by the second draft revision because they'd just be using screen time summarizing things the audience already saw. Not to mention why Athena and Tyrion wouldn't have had such a conversation in the days they first met in Marine, which was weeks or months ago. Cogman said one of the primary reasons he initially put in was because Peter Dinklage and Alfie Allen are two of the best actors in the cast, so he wanted to have a scene showing them off together. Cogman also remarked in his post-premiere interview that while filming season 7, even the actors were surprised at times at how fast the pace is going. That is, how much time passes off-screen between scenes. We see a character writing a letter sent by messenger raven, someone else receiving in another part of Westeros, the original sender reacting to a response letter in the same episode. Cogman emphasized that this isn't inherently a contradiction in the internal timeline of the TV series. It's simply that the pace of the narrative is sufficiently faster, i.e. in Season 1, Ned Stark and his family travel from Winterfell to the end of the crossroads within a single episode, because so many weeks of travel happen off-screen. We accept months of narrative paths for Robb Stark while campaign in Season 2 as well, when scenes aren't directly connected. The timeline only becomes an issue when there is an overt contradiction. For example, Greymoor leaves Dragonstone and arrives at Casterly Rock, on the other side of the continent, by ship in the next episode, which confused some reviewers, but nothing actually limited how much time passed between these episodes. Presumably, weeks pass off screen. It would not be a contradiction if, for example, Greymoor arrived at Casterly Rock and said, "We left Dragonstone yesterday." The Bran and Cassandra Clegane storylines do not appear in this episode. The storyline of Daenerys and her various allies shift into focus, which really briefly began at the end of the last episode. The opening credits are updated for this episode to replace the twins from the preceding episode with Pike. Even though there are no scenes set in their own islands themselves, the Greyjoy characters are very prominent in it. Sometimes the animations are chosen on a representative basis. This one of the episodes actually referred to the eastern continent across the narrow sea from Westeros by name as Essos, only 4 times in the past 6 seasons, making this the 5th time. It's called Essos by name in both Daenerys' scenes and by Cersei. Essos is a loose fantasy and analog of Eurasia, and indeed is so vast that characters usually refer to a more specific region, such as the Free Cities or the Dothraki Sea. A character saying, "I'm going to Essos," is usually similar to someone in real life saying, "I'm going to Eurasia," most referring to anything from Italy to China. This episode has 2 characters named Nymeria in it. Arya's direwolf Nymeria, who returns, and Sensei Nymeria Sand, who was killed. The dialogue simply avoids referring to Nymeria Sand by name. Both characters are named after Nymeria, Queen of the Rhoynar, the founder of Unified Dorne, who lived 1,000 years ago. Nymeria Sand is in fact her descendant as a member of House Martell, prior to this episode. Interesting. So I think this episode is kind of interesting, and it is kind of sad that Theon couldn't save his sister, but who knows, maybe he'll get a chance to save her in the next couple episodes, so yeah. So overall, I give Stormborn 4 Valyrian Steel Swords out of 5. Anyway, tune tomorrow as we take the next episode, The Queen's Justice. So, until then, remember everyone, winter is coming.